Connor Bedard was supposed to be spending this offseason doing what young superstars do after their best year yet. Instead, he is rehabbing a surgically repaired shoulder, and the Chicago Blackhawks are staring down the start of a new season without their most important player. This is the story of how it happened, why it is the third time in 3 years, and what it means for a franchise that has built its entire future around one 20-year-old center. Let's start with the moment everything changed. On July 2nd, 2026, Bedard was on the ice for an off-season training session in Vancouver, British Columbia, the kind of low-stakes summer skate that thousands of NHL players go through every year without incident. During that session, Bedard fell awkwardly and landed hard on his left shoulder. Video of the moment quickly spread online, showing Bedard leaving the ice clearly in pain, cradling his arm as he made his way off. The Blackhawks did not immediately confirm the severity, but the visible reaction alone was enough to worry fans who remembered his injury history all too well. 6 days later, on July 8th, the Blackhawks made it official. Team physician Dr. Michael Terry released a statement confirming that Bedard had undergone successful surgery that morning to repair his left shoulder. The statement was direct and left little room for optimism about a quick return. The team said it expected a full recovery in an approximate timeline of 4 months. Simple math puts that recovery window landing around the middle of November, which means Bedard will miss the Blackhawks training camp entirely and likely the first month or more of regular season games. The timing could not be worse for a league that just shifted its entire calendar. This is the first season under the NHL's new collective bargaining agreement featuring an expanded 84-game schedule, with the season now starting in late September instead of early October. That earlier start means every game Bedard misses at the front end carries more weight in a longer, more grueling schedule, and it pushes his eventual return deeper into a season Chicago hoped would show real progress. Now, here is where the story gets heavier, because this is not an isolated incident. This is the third major injury Bedard has suffered in 3 calendar years since the Blackhawks made him the first overall pick in the 2023 NHL draft. During his rookie season, Bedard suffered a broken jaw after taking a hit during a game, an injury that immediately raised concerns about how a smaller, highly skilled player would hold up against the physical punishment of full NHL seasons. He recovered and went on to have a strong rookie campaign, ultimately winning the Calder Trophy as the league's top rookie for the 2023-24 season. Fans and analysts largely treated the broken jaw as bad luck, a freak accident rather than a sign of anything deeper. Then came last December. During a game against the St. Louis Blues, Bedard took a hit while contesting a face-off with 1 second remaining on the clock and suffered an upper body injury that turned out to be to his right shoulder. He missed 12 games recovering from that injury and, by his own admission, was not fully back to 100% for weeks after his return. He pushed to play through it anyway, a pattern that has become well known among people who cover the team closely. Bedard has consistently tried to beat his recovery timelines and get back on the ice faster than doctors initially projected, something he has done successfully after both the jaw injury and the right shoulder injury. This new injury is different in one important way. It is to his left shoulder, the opposite side from the one he hurt in December. That distinction matters because it rules out the idea that this is simply a nagging injury that never properly healed. Instead, it suggests something more troubling, a pattern of 3 separate unrelated injuries hitting a player who is still only 20 years old, turning 21 later this month. 3 major injuries in 3 years is not the kind of pattern teams like to see in a franchise cornerstone, regardless of how each individual injury happened. Analysts covering the story have been blunt about what this means going forward. One column from the Chicago Sun-Times pointed out that Bedard's insatiable desire to be on the ice has become well known throughout the league, and that a recovery timeline of 4 months will likely frustrate him more than anyone. The same reporting drew a direct comparison to Carolina Hurricanes forward Seth Jarvis, who underwent a similar shoulder surgery in late June and was given a recovery window of 4 to 6 months, a reminder that not every shoulder surgery carries the same risk or the same road back. The Blackhawks, for their part, have tried to project confidence publicly while acknowledging the obvious disappointment. Losing your best offensive weapon before training camp even begins is never good news, no matter how the organization chooses to frame it internally. Here's what makes this injury sting even more for Blackhawks fans, so stick around, because the contract situation makes this whole story even messier. Bedard is currently a restricted free agent, meaning he remains without a new contract, even though he has been eligible to sign one with Chicago since July 1st of last year. General manager Kyle Davidson said just last week, before this injury became public, that there was no meaningful update on where those contract discussions stood. Now, those talks are unfolding under the shadow of a 4-month recovery timeline, which complicates things in ways that go beyond just games missed. Reports have suggested that ongoing conversations between Bedard's camp and Chicago's front office may have already been complicated by outside market forces, specifically the enormous offer sheet saga involving Anaheim center Leo Carlsson this offseason. Carlsson, who was selected one pick after Bedard in the 2023 draft, ended up signing a deal worth $18 million a year in average value after a bidding war between Anaheim and Philadelphia, instantly making him the highest paid player in the league by yearly salary. That number resets the market for every young restricted free agent center currently negotiating a second contract, Bedard included. Whether Chicago wants to pay Bedard something in that same neighborhood, or whether this new injury gives them leverage to negotiate a more cautious deal, is now one of the most closely watched storylines of the summer. Analysts have floated two very different paths for these negotiations. One option is a shorter bridge deal, something in the 4-year range that lets both sides revisit the numbers again soon, especially with some uncertainty now attached to his long-term health. The other option is a long-term commitment, something closer to 8 years, that locks Bedard in through the prime of his career and bets that a healthy version of him is worth every penny regardless of this summer's setback. Analytical models covering the Blackhawks were already skeptical about how much the team could realistically improve heading into this season, largely because of a still developing supporting cast around Bedard. Those same models are described as becoming even more bearish now that the team's best player will miss a significant chunk of the schedule. There is also a very real on-ice cost to consider. During the 12 games Bedard missed last season with his right shoulder injury, the Blackhawks went a semi-respectable 5 wins, 6 losses, and 1 overtime loss, a stretch that at least did not completely collapse without him. But that absence came in the middle of an established season with a full training camp and a settled roster already in rhythm. This time, Bedard will miss the entire training camp process, meaning the Blackhawks will open the season with new or unfamiliar line combinations, no chemistry built around their best offensive player, and an extended adjustment period once he eventually does return in November. To put his importance in real terms, Bedard led the Blackhawks outright last season with 75 points, made up of 30 goals and 45 assists across 69 games. Since entering the league, he has racked up 203 points in 219 career games, numbers that place him firmly among the most productive young centers in hockey. Removing that kind of production from the lineup for a month or more right as the season begins is not something most rebuilding rosters can simply absorb without a serious dip in performance. It is also worth remembering just how much has changed around Bedard this offseason, injury aside. Chicago made aggressive moves to try to speed up their rebuild, most notably acquiring defenseman Bowen Byram and forward Jordan Greenway from the Buffalo Sabres before signing Byram to a 6-year contract extension of his own. There was real optimism building that these additions, combined with a full, healthy season from Bedard, could push Chicago into being a more competitive team than they have been in recent years. That optimism now comes with an asterisk attached before a single regular season game has even been played. So where does this leave the Blackhawks heading into training camp? The team will need to lean on its supporting cast far more than originally planned, at least for the season's opening stretch. Younger players and depth forwards will get an early opportunity to prove themselves in bigger roles they were not necessarily expecting to fill this soon. Meanwhile, the front office faces a genuine question about how this injury history factors into a contract that could define the franchise's direction for the better part of a decade. For Bedard himself, the challenge is both physical and mental. He has built a reputation as a player who pushes hard to return ahead of schedule, doing exactly that after both the jaw injury and last December's shoulder injury. Whether he can safely do the same thing here, cutting into a 4-month recovery window without risking a setback to the opposite shoulder, will be one of the most closely watched storylines of the coming months. The Blackhawks have made clear that the priority now is a full and complete recovery rather than rushing him back for the sake of a few extra games in October, a stance that suggests the organization has learned something from watching their franchise player push through pain twice already in his short career. 3 shoulder and jaw injuries in 3 years is a pattern nobody wants attached to a 20-year-old cornerstone, but it does not erase what Bedard has already proven he can do when healthy. The real test now is not whether he can dominate on the ice. He has already answered that question. The real test is whether his body can hold up long enough to let him do it consistently, and whether Chicago is willing to bet a franchise-altering contract on the answer being yes. If you want the latest update the moment Bedard's contract situation moves or his recovery timeline changes, subscribe and turn on notifications because this story is far from over.